Well, we're a little ahead of schedule, but I think you'll probably be okay with us just pressing on. Is that okay? All right, so at this point, I would like to turn the session over to Dr. Rob Fleming, who is BCCAT's Executive Director and Co-Chair, who is going to be providing us with an overview of BCCAT's initiatives and partnerships in key areas of importance to the BC transfer system. So Rob, you ready to go?
Well, thanks everyone for hanging in with us for 2 full days. It's been really invigorating for me personally, I think for all of us as a staff, although I'm pretty sure come 3 o'clock we're all going to deflate instantly after about 3 months, 4 months of preparation. Mike's done a fantastic job as usual, being up front and center and managing all of us. And I know he'll acknowledge individual staff a little bit later when he gives the closing remarks, but I just want to reinforce probably the obvious that there's a big team behind the scenes making all of this work, not just for today, but for the past several months for logistics, planning, etc. So I know you're out there, folks, and we'll celebrate on Monday when we're all a little bit refreshed after the weekend. So thank you. I also want to take a chance to thank all of you in terms of your presentation and your participation, not just today, but throughout the year and over the years. We're very much acutely aware at BCCAT that we're a small group, a small team, and entirely dependent on the goodwill and the commitment of you professionally with students across institutions, and just the desire to collaborate to make it all work. We know it's a network built on trust, understanding, and a willingness to get things done. And I was really heartened at our ceremony last night when we were able to recognize Stephanie Boychuk as a rising star in the transfer and articulation world. And she spoke very eloquently about how she sees her role not only in articulation in BC, but within the institution, using a metaphor of a tree with roots, with branches, with students in that metaphor as the leaves that we're helping to bring to fruition. But what I thought was really fascinating, I know you're out there somewhere, Stephanie, I just can't find you, as a non-biologist, was the metaphor of all of the chemicals and other sensory elements that link the elements of the trees and the roots together to create an ecosystem, because that's really what we're talking about here in terms of the transfer system in BC. We have all these autonomous trees trying to do the best for our students, but the ecosystem as a whole has to be healthy for any one of the trees to continue to grow, and I think that's what we're doing here today. I feel like my work has been done for me for the most part. Maybe that's the way we structured the program with all these great presentations covering areas that we think are driving our work over the past and coming forward. And I really I want to thank Ralph and Leonard for the push, the prod they gave us this morning, because it was a nice segue into our reflections as we come into our 35th year of the great work we've done collectively over the years, but the significant work we have yet to do to move forward to provide more comprehensive information and more flexible pathways and better equity and diversity inclusion for learners across this system. So we're thinking about that actively, and this conference helps us to move that forward even further. I did want to say that I think you're all pretty familiar with our mandate, so I won't go through it, but we are aware that as more and more pressures are applied to all of us in an increasingly complex world and educational environments and fiscal challenges, it's BCCAT's responsibility to think carefully about how we support system work and help you in your work to move things forward. So when we look at our research, when we look at our facilitating transfer activities, our technology, and our collaborations, we have that front and center and trying to make sure that we're getting the right balance. And for those of you who aren't aware, our work plan is developed every year with input from the system. So if you have ideas around research or collaborative activities that you think are important, we need to hear them from you, and we'll work forward to making that happen. There are also some external drivers that, let me get the right button here, that shape our work, really positive ones. We have a very strong relationship with the ministry and feel very well supported with a lot of the initiatives we're working on and that they're trying to facilitate for students. You heard about many of them here today, but certainly the Future Ready Action Plan, the Ministry's Digital Service Plan, these are all front and center in the sort of activities that we're giving priority to right now and into the future, and many of which you heard today. Some good key goals there, recognizing providing easy access, informed decisions, fiscal responsibilities are larger principles, but there are activities that we're engaged in that relate to that. You heard a little bit about the credit bank, micro-credentials, international credit recognition is not one we talked about today, but we're thinking about our role in helping facilitate information that makes these kind of processes easier for credit recognition for learners and for people entering our society and careers within it. And one final one we're looking at around transcript and transfer credit assessment. I'm not sure if Karen is here from Education Planner BC, but we're very much aware that one of the big informational gaps right now, and I think it speaks to the currency question that Ralph and Leonard raised, was how does the learning that we've acquired in our various contexts apply to different programmatic and institutional ones? So what we're doing with the Pathways Project and other elements is to be able to give an interpretation of the currency of that learning acquired, whether it's through courses on a transcript or perhaps through credit bank models, so that there's more of a pathway for students and learners to look for the opportunities they have to pursue throughout their lives. So more on that as we go forward. I just wanted to give you, we talked a lot about a lot of our research here today, but there's a whole number of other areas that our research has been stretched out a little bit more broadly as we've dealt with systemic issues across the system, and we're quite happy to do that, trying to tie it back to our mandate at all circumstances. But certainly we've done some work around the impact of COVID-19 on registrarial practices. There's a series of papers and pieces of work in that regard, understanding that these are things that are changing our ecosystem. So the more we're able to communicate with each other about what we're doing, and we're having a collective memory of what we've done so students are not lost or forgotten or unduly harmed down the line, is really valuable for us. A lot of work, John had to leave from NBIT, but a lot of work with different institutions. I think Jason is in the back there, Jason LaRochelle from JIBC, around trying to facilitate better Indigenous partnership pathways between public and Indigenous institutions, including Indigenous and adult higher learning institutions. We've heard about some of the online delivery trends. There's been work being done in EDI, in admissions practices. How do we create more inclusive practices who are a broader base collection of students entering our system, etc. And I'm reminded of a quote from a wonderful co-op student we had a few years ago, Daniel Jacinto, who was a UBC student, is now a PhD student, I believe, is in Indiana, who at the end of his co-op term, when you're asked to reflect on your work you're doing, and usually with our co-op students, we give them an opportunity to present or to be part of a publication. And he came up with this reflective comment on transfer from someone who had really been a direct entry student and not really experienced it coming to us, that I thought is wonderfully reflective of the reality we see every day, and that it is complex, it is individual, and as much as we might think there are structured pathways that students should follow, for the majority of the time, they actually get interrupted on those pathways. And that's why the work we do is so important, is to deal with the reality of circumstances rather than the way we would like things to work out in a highly structured, or as I think, I've forgotten the term you used, Ralph, but a system that has a lot of closed borders between it. So that's a little reminder. And finally, as a plug, because I'm about to go out on the road and talk to all your provosts and some of your presidents about some of the priorities we need to move forward. So I want to enlist you in helping me in that regard as we move forward. Jennifer talked about the Pathways Project. Mike is talking an awful lot about the technology enhancements overall. All of these are tools to enable greater tools for you and greater opportunities for learners. So with respect to prioritizing initiatives, we will be looking to incorporate pathways information into the transfer guide over the next couple of years, and we will be partnering with Education Planner BC and hopefully directly with institutions to share this information and to get your information within our system so it can be more effectively maintained and used to leverage relationships to build pathways. We will be working on electronic transcript credit exchange assessment, which I've already mentioned earlier. So think about this as the ability to take a transcript, put it into a scanner, if that's the right analogy, and be able to see what your options are so students can see, can be much more in control of the opportunities they have before them. And we will be working with TRU and other groups around the BC Credit Bank to the extent that we can help workflow and leverage our networks to get information out there as we go forward. So I just want to take the opportunity to reinforce where we're going, why we're going, and I think it reflects really nicely on the program of activities that we had over the last couple of days. And we are very enthusiastic about the opportunity to be collaborating more wholly with Ontario. Mike alluded to that, and Adrian and I were talking over lunch with Ben as well on how we move that forward, because it really is the same challenge looking at Canada as a whole in terms of providing better information. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it on over to Mike, but thank you again.